When a supervillain threatens the safety of Berg's inhabitants, a young detective and an invisible monster team up to protect their city. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Little Monsters, from 2022. Legend has it that every house has an invisible spirit responsible for keeping the environment in order and helping the inhabitants. These creatures are known as Finns, and their main function is to transform a simple house into a real home. In addition, they have a special affection for pets and help families avoid all kinds of domestic accidents. However, like every rule, this story also has an exception, called Finnick. This unusual Finn, instead of bringing harmony to the environment, has the mission of making life as difficult as possible for the families who live in his house. Believing that they are living with an evil spirit, the residents sooner or later end up leaving the place, and Finnick always celebrates their departure. One day, a new family moves to the city of Berg. Christine and her parents are very excited to be living this new phase of their lives, and their first stop is the recording studio where the couple will be acting in a detective series. JB is a janitor who works behind the scenes, but his biggest dream is to become a successful actor. On arriving at the set, the family is greeted by the director's assistant, who welcomes the couple and gives them the script for their characters. Although she's not very interested in acting, Christine is obsessed with mysteries and investigative stories. So she's also excited about her parents' new job. After giving some additional information about the job, the assistant hands over the keys to the house where the family will live temporarily, and then goes to help the staff set up the next scene. Meanwhile, JB flatters the director to try and get a role in the series. However, his performance is less than satisfactory, and all the staff start laughing when they see the young man's dramatics. Embarrassed, JB decides to leave, but ends up getting caught in one of the wires and suffers an accident that destroys a large part of the set. Furious, the director kicks him off the set and tells him that, from that day on, he's fired. A few hours later, Christine and her parents get to know their new home, and Finnick soon realizes that some residents are arriving. When she enters, the girl is frightened and says that the place looks like a crime scene, but her mother assures her that it will soon be transformed into a beautiful home. When he sees the family stacking boxes in their house, Finnick is furious and soon begins to think of a way to evict them. The woman quickly takes the appliances out of the boxes, then the Finn starts acting up and throws the toaster into the garden. The next morning, Christine goes for breakfast at a bakery in town, and, while reading her book, she is approached by Mark and his friends. The kids discover that she is the new resident of the most haunted house in town and advise her to be very careful, as there are many scary stories about the place. However, Christine doesn't worry about this, as she knows that all supernatural events actually have a logical explanation behind them. The young woman then waits for the young men to get distracted by the TV so she can sneak out and get away from the conversation, but Mark realizes that Christine has forgotten her book and sees an opportunity to talk to her once again. Meanwhile, the girl's parents are at home arguing, and Finnick is excited because he realizes that his plan is working. If all goes well, the creature will soon have the whole house to himself again. However, it doesn't take long for the furry one to realize that the couple are just rehearsing their roles for the recording. The truth is that they are happier and more in love than ever. When Christine gets home, her parents go to the studio, and Finnick takes the opportunity to try to terrorize her. Suddenly, the lights start to flicker and the TV turns itself on. Just then, the girl hears footsteps running through the house and attacks the intruder with bug spray. Terrified, Finnick tries to escape, and his body ends up getting stuck in the curtain, which allows Christine to track him down. The young woman then tries to hold the creature and accidentally pulls out a tuft of its fur. At that moment, Finnick becomes visible to her, and Christine tries to find out what the creature is. The monster explains that he is a Finn and humans cannot see him unless they have possession of his fur. So Finnick orders Christine to return the hair she has pulled from his body, because his friends would be furious if they found out that the girl can see him. Just then, other Finns appear, and the young woman is frozen so that they don't realize that she can see them. While observing the behavior of these creatures, Christine discovers that they are passionate about sweets, and, when the group leaves, she decides to follow them to investigate. A few minutes later, the girl arrives at an old abandoned mansion and discovers that the Finns meet there every week for a meeting. At this point, she tries to take a picture of the monsters, but realizes that the camera is unable to detect them. At the beginning of the meeting, Finnick is invited to talk about his new tenants, and Bagfinn soon realizes that he is trying to hide something. To prevent his secret from being discovered, the Finn passes the ball to one of his colleagues and tells him that he has heard some rumors that Muffin's human almost destroyed a film studio. At this point, the furry man stands up and tries to defend JB, saying that he almost starred in a TV show. However, the Finns continue to mock the human and say that he will never be an actor. Furious at the taunts, Muffin leaves and says that his colleagues will soon find out that they are wrong. At night, when she returns home, Christine uses Finnick's hair to make a bracelet. That way, she can always see the monsters. The next morning, the young woman is talking to her mother on the phone when she hears the doorbell ring. When she answers the door, she finds Mark, and the young man tells her that he went there to return the book she had forgotten in the bakery. Before leaving, he invites her to the movies, but Finnick pushes the girl and she accidentally knocks over her glass of juice. Ashamed, Mark leaves and plans a new strategy to win Christine's heart. When they are alone again, Finnick forbids the girl to receive visitors and says that humans are not welcome in that house. After questioning the reason for this, Christine discovers that her new friend didn't have good experiences with the old residents, as they all tried to destroy his house. According to Finnick, if a house is destroyed, the Finn who lives in it also ceases to exist, but humans don't worry about this, as they don't even know these creatures exist. So, over the last few years, the furry man decided that he would kick out all the people who moved in, and so he did. While venting all his anger at humanity, Finnick ends up getting stuck in a lawnmower and drags Christine with him through the garden. Shortly afterwards, the pair slide down the grass and end up in the back of a truck. So the two friends are forced to take a short trip and wait for the vehicle to stop so they can get off. At that moment, the truck enters a factory and dumps its load into a boiler. The curious thing is that, apparently, there is no one in the driver's seat, and, while the back is being emptied, the employees realize that it is not coal that is being dumped inside. Suddenly, a large quantity of popcorn begins to form and they realize that several tons of corn have been poured into the boiler. Christine is outside the factory when she hears a loud noise and spots a mysterious creature running through the smoke. She immediately tries to photograph it with her cell phone, but it manages to escape. Minutes later, an explosion occurs and tons of popcorn flood the streets of Berg, causing panic among the residents. After the avalanche, a reporter takes to the streets to record the damage caused and, during the recording, receives an anonymous note with a message for all the inhabitants of the town. An unknown man who calls himself the Invisible Terror claims that he has only begun to spread chaos and that very soon everyone will hear about him again. At that moment, Christine approaches and says that she managed to photograph the suspect, but no one appears in the image. So she comes to the conclusion that the culprit was a Finn and asks for Finnick's help to find him. At first, the furry creature refuses to take part in the investigation, but changes his mind when the young woman promises to return his fur as soon as they find the Invisible Terror. They quickly return to the scene of the crime and begin to follow the trail left by the oil that leaked from the engine. In order not to risk making a wrong turn, Finnick starts sniffing out the tracks and almost gets run over by the trucks that are sweeping the streets. At this point, he finds a sewer passage and manages to hide. After being caught by another Finn, the monster refuses to continue acting like a dog and plans to abandon the mission. However, Christine spots the truck that the suspect used to escape from the factory and they both start chasing him. The vehicle then makes its way to the town's railway station and a creature distracts the staff in order to alter the route of the tracks. When they realize that the Invisible Terror is about to escape again, Christine and Finnick decide to hitch a ride to catch up with him. The pair run through the wagons until they lose sight of the vehicle and decide to enjoy the journey, since they are stuck on the train. Meanwhile, the station employees are watching funny videos on the internet, and by the time they realize that a collision is about to happen, it's too late. So they try to contact the driver and he orders everyone to leave the train. Before entering the tunnel, the man pulls the emergency brakes and, when the vehicle stops, all the passengers are able to get out safely. Seconds later, a freight train approaches and the driver has to jump to save himself. The vehicles then collide, causing a serious accident. At that moment, one of the employees of the wind farm that supplies energy to the town realizes that something is wrong and goes to ask for help. However, when he arrives at the control cabin, he finds his colleagues tied up and also ends up being captured by an invisible creature, which alters the wires and increases the speed of the turbines. Shortly afterwards, a tornado forms and carries everything away. In an attempt to protect themselves, Christine and Finnick take shelter in a car, but the vehicle is also swept away. While in the eye of the hurricane, they are hit by a giant hot dog and manage to escape the tornado. When she finds the control room, Christine helps the employees free themselves and one of the men fixes the wires, causing the turbines to stop spinning. At the end of this episode, the technicians are traumatized, believing that all the chaos was caused by an evil spirit. After this supernatural phenomenon, Christine calls her mother and realizes that the Invisible Terror is taking inspiration from scenes in the TV series her parents are recording to destroy the city. So she decides to pay a visit to the recording studio to read the script for the next episodes. However, when she arrives in the director's office, the young woman realizes that the Finn has already been there. After reading the next scenes, she discovers that the villain of the series will use a Ferris wheel in his next attack and realizes that the amusement park is in danger. Just then, the director appears and the pair have to flee. When they get to the parking lot, they find the invisible terror truck and manage to open the trunk. However, when Christine goes inside to investigate, the vehicle starts to move and the girl is trapped inside. When he realizes that his friend has been taken, Finnick becomes desperate and, a few minutes later, Christine is found by JB. Suddenly, the girl spots Muffin and realizes that he is the Finn responsible for all the disasters that have occurred in Berg. Believing that she is the only one who can see these creatures, Christine tries to explain her theory to the young man, but he refuses to believe in the existence of invisible monsters. However, when he hears Muffin's name, JB realizes that Christine is telling the truth and says that he will help her capture the creature. When the young woman shows him her bracelet, JB reveals that he can also see the Finns and Muffin as actually his partner in crime. Frightened, Christine tries to flee, but all the doors and windows are locked and her cell phone has been stolen by the furry man. When asked why he committed all those crimes, JB says that he dreamed of being a famous actor, but his talent was never recognized. When he heard the young man's lamentations, Muffin identified with him, as he was tired of being the laughing stock of the other Finns. All the monster wanted was to have a real friend, so one night he decided to reveal himself to JB. After putting the bracelet on his wrist, the young man was able to see the creature and, after a short outburst, the two became friends. From that day on, JB decided to use Muffin's powers to become a real villain, just like the ones he had watched on TV since he was a child. While the man tells his sad story, Finnick finally manages to find Christine through the tracks left by the truck. All this time, the young woman has been looking for a way to escape and ends up in a cage with many Finns. At that moment, she discovers that JB has used the fur of those creatures to build a costume and thus become invisible to human eyes. After losing all their fur, the Finns went crazy and Muffin revealed that he was responsible for helping that human capture his friends. The man used bait to attract the creatures because, thanks to Muffin, he knows that Finns love ice cream. Suddenly, Finnick appears and orders the pair to free Christine. However, JB uses a net to trap him and, when she tries to help her friend, the girl becomes the next victim. Now that he has captured yet another Finn, the young man intends to shave off its fur, just as he did with all the others, and imprison the creature in the back of his truck. Before going to the park, JB steals Christine's bracelet because he believes he is the only one who should have the privilege of seeing the furry ones. During the journey, Muffin discovers that the next crime his human intends to commit will jeopardize every house in the city. Knowing that the Finns will disappear if their homes are destroyed, the monster tries to convince JB to abandon the plan, but the young man won't listen. So Muffin takes the wheel and tries to stop the truck, which makes his human furious. Now that the Finn is no longer willing to help him, JB decides to punish him and removes all his hair. He then throws the monster into the back of the vehicle. Meanwhile, Christine manages to free herself and looks for a way out of the house. After opening the fridge, she decides to use ice cream as bait to get the Finns to rip the bars off the windows. Just then, Finnick is about to become JB's next victim. However, before he has his hair shaved off, he attacks the young man and manages to throw him away. Furious, the man locks the trunk and sets fire to a pool of oil that has formed next to the vehicle. He then gets into the truck and drives to the amusement park while Finnick tries to open the door. As the lock is on the outside, the furry creature breaks the window and frees Muffin. He then asks him to open the trunk, but the creature has lost his sanity just like all the other Finns who have been shorn. When he realizes this, Finnick uses the weight of his own body to try to open the door and ends up crashing the vehicle into a tree. At this point, the door opens and he manages to free himself. Worried about her friend, Christine decides to go to the old mansion to ask the other Finns for help, as she knows they will be together that day for their weekly meeting. When she enters the room, the young woman introduces herself and tells them everything she has discovered about the invisible terror. When he discovers that Finnick and his other companions are in danger, Grandpops puts a piece of his fur in the girl's hands and she can see Finn again. At that moment, the monsters join the girl and run into the park. By now, JB has arrived and is climbing the Ferris wheel with a bomb in his hands. Soon after, Finnick shows up and goes after him, hoping to stop him from completing his plan. After lighting the fuse, the villain quickly goes downstairs, but returns when he realizes that the Finn has managed to extinguish the bomb. However, when he reaches for the lighter, Finnick attacks him and manages to steal the object. At this point, the two adversaries start a duel and JB uses the light bulbs from the Ferris wheel to tie up the monster. What he didn't realize was that Finnick managed to get hold of his lighter and set fire to the criminal's costume. At that moment, everyone can see him and the police are called. Even after being unmasked, JB is undeterred and continues with his evil plan. When the explosion happens, Finnick is thrown away and ends up trapped in one of the cabins. At that moment, the Ferris wheel breaks loose and the passengers jump onto the grass to save themselves. While celebrating the success of his plan, JB slips on a puddle of ice cream and his whole body is impregnated by the dessert. Seeing her best friend in trouble, Christine rushes to his rescue and manages to prevent him from suffering a fatal fall. Meanwhile, Grandpops and the other furry ones team up to stop the Ferris wheel from destroying Berg. Immediately, JB realizes what is happening and plans to go there to stop them, but is attacked by the crazed Finns who jump on him to lick the ice cream off his body. Meanwhile, the other monsters continue their mission to prevent the town's houses from being crushed. Christine's parents are recording the next episode of the series when they spot the Ferris wheel and realize that their daughter is in danger. Immediately, the couple rushes over to help her and the whole family manages to save themselves by jumping onto the canvas of a restaurant. At that moment, they see the Ferris wheel rolling towards the ocean and falling into the sea. Soon afterwards, the fire department arrives on the scene to repair the damage and JB is caught by the police. As he goes to handcuff the criminal, the policeman removes his bracelet. So, from now on, the young man will no longer be able to see the Finns. At the end of the investigation, Christine bids farewell to her friend and says she will keep her end of the bargain. She then returns the bracelet to Finnick, but is surprised when Finnick presents her with a new bracelet made from his own hair, since the accessory she is wearing belongs to Grandpops. At that moment, the two friends hug and go to the park to have fun on the roller coaster. Over the next few weeks, the monsters who are shorn regain their fur and their sanity. One weekend, Christine is in the park with her parents when the director's assistant shows up and informs them that the couple have won the lead role in a new series. Suddenly, Mark approaches Christine and again invites her to the movies. This time, she accepts. Now that they have a new contract, the couple decide to buy the house they live in and completely renovate it. When he realizes that these humans are not like the other tenants, Finnick is happy to welcome them into his home and now begins to fulfill his role as a true Finn, transforming that environment into a home for his new family. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.